Welcome to the third session of our electronic tea. We are going to continue to talk about the things in the Enki approach that inspire us. In our last clip, you heard about our excitement around Enki's approach to multiculturalism. Another thing we unanimously raised was how inspired we are by Enki's focus on the process of learning. For me, this approach to learning hasn't just affected my teaching, but my life as a whole. But before we get to the chat and share more about that, we thought it would be helpful if Beth shared a bit of an overview of the principles.
They are going to refer to some terms that may not be familiar to you. We talk about the threefold learning process, and this is a process that parallels human digestion. Basically, simply put, we first want the children to take in the learning meal. Then we want to give them time to digest that before they're ever asked to have understanding, concept, or opinion on whatever they've taken in. So we will generally do our open intake, or the initial eating of the information, through story or through movement work. And the children are really just experiencing it with an open heart and an open mind. Then it is always left to sleep. Modern science is finding that when you sleep, you actually make connections with all of your past experience. So whatever you're sleeping on becomes your own. And then beginning the next day, sometimes for one day, sometimes for weeks, the children will take time to digest what they have taken in. And that happens through the arts, happens through field trips, work with manipulatives, anything that is active and non-conceptual, where they can engage without solidifying a concept. On that base, they have their own experience of whatever it is we're bringing them. And what happens is we then help them bring it to concept, and the concept is their own. They actually can discover a great deal about their world. So in the segment that follows, you'll hear the parents discussing particular experiences they had that came as a result of honoring this threefold learning process. So let's join them and see what their examples are.
An example, so my 8-year-old is going into 3rd grade. We've done some work on the vowel sounds, the consonant sounds. We did that work in 1st grade. We did some more specific work on phonics within a story context in what I call the spelling stories. And he was engaged in all of that work, but he wasn't integrating it into an ability or a desire to read. And I think for both of my boys, the summer after 2nd grade, when everything kind of stops and they had a chance to kind of just sit with what we've been working on, all of those skills that they've kind of holding at just starting to hold, they both started reading voraciously the summer after 2nd grade. And so now Theo, who was really not at all reading in 2nd grade, he's read about 36 Magic Treehouse books in the last 6 weeks. He reads about one a day, and he's so excited about it. And I think that he, in particular, if I had taught him how to read in a very traditional way or sent him to kindergarten where he had to start sounding out words, rather than giving him the space to come up with his own way. And I will say, I'm not exactly sure what his window is to reading. For both of my boys who read very well, that is a mystery to me, but it's a mystery I'm open to. I think that that's, not only is it magical about reading, but it's a broader gift to them in the fact that they have that capacity within themselves to chart unknown territory.
So with looking at what was nourishing for one of my children through this journey with Enki was watching Joseph as he took hold of reading. And he certainly, when compared to our traditional settings, had a very slow unfolding. He didn't take to reading until he was definitely 9. And he went, though, from frog and toad reading to major chapter books, and he now reads more than I do. He's a voracious reader, has incredible comprehension, and loves to read. Had he been in a typical school setting, I think that just based on what I hear from others, would have been a very different experience. Now, for me, as his homeschooling parent, I have no background in education, and so my guidance in how to support him with reading came through the Enki materials, but also a piece that has always been nourishing for me is the online community and the group calls and the individual consults with Beth that helped me to see where he was taking hold. So no, he wasn't reading, but as I now understand, there were places we could see, yes, he is decoding. And yes, his work with the word family stories, for example, that are in first grade, and him recognizing those patterns were all guiding us. It wasn't like we just let him muck about and, oh, well, he'll read when he reads. We were providing opportunities and doorways, and I was with curiosity watching to see how that was unfolding. And then when he did take to reading and was so empowered, just that was something that he did, and there wasn't an overlay with it.
Lately, we did some standard measurement, and he's always helped Dad with the tape measure when Dad's been building things, shelves here or there, doing whatever home improvement stuff. He loves the tape measure. But, he never really understood it. Dad would just say, look for 54. He'd pull out the thing and stop at 54. And he didn't really know what that meant. He was just looking for the number 54. And so we did, we measured our arc, and we went up to the park, and because our yard wasn't big enough, we had to go up there, and then we came home, measured ourselves, each our own personal foot, and how we all ended up to be the same height, and how that was really silly because Daddy surely could not wear Knox's pants. And although the boys really wanted Dad to try. And so then we got into standard measurement and, a foot and how many inches were in a foot and a yard. And then we just let it go. And we were driving up to my in-laws for Christmas, and we just had a snowstorm, and Phineas and Knox were asking, well, how much snow did Nanny and Grampy get? And I said, I think they got about 12 to 14 inches. And Phineas said, oh, so they got more than a foot. And Josh and I were both just taken aback. We looked at each other and smiled and tried not to say anything. It's like, oh my gosh, he got it. He figured it out. And it was really cool because we had left it. And when I left it, I thought for sure I hadn't spent enough time on it, that there was no way he was going to make the connection between, his foot and 12 inches and a real foot and 54 on the tape measure. I thought there's no way he got any of that. And he did. So that was cool.
Yeah, it's been great fun to watch that discovery process in math with my children, particularly because my journey through with math in a traditional public school setting was all about memorizing algorithms and then that, 12 inches make a foot. But I had no connection to, as you just described, going out and seeing how many feet the arc connected to a story was, and then to play around with our different body, foot, and standardized measurement, all of those pieces. A recent one I had with Rebecca after she's up into 4th grade. And so with all of those years of experience of really having deep connection to whatever content we're bringing first, and then really messing about with it and doing manipulatives and all of those pieces before we ever brought it to, even just the simple writing the equation of 2 + 2 = 4. And so we were getting ready to do long division and toying with the direction of this may be a case, because for any of us to try to talk through what are we doing really, not just the algorithm of long division, but what are we doing place value wise with the units and the tens and the hundreds. And so in this case, I was going to approach it kind of in the reverse and start with, here's what you're going to do algorithm wise. And I wrote it out, and we were starting to work with that, still connected, still had a story, still was really going to have it be a connected experience. And she was having none of that. She said, no, Mom, you're showing me here are the units and here are the units. We need to figure out how those two go in. And to watch her go through that process, so connected and so empowered and confident that she could discover how to do this. It just, for me, was just so affirming of how that process of learning just connects them with the joy of learning. Another example I have with that is, it has to do with art, but then it came back around for us with physics in that, starting all the way in kindergarten with watercolor painting and the children meeting red and really living into the quality of that and having story and connection. And then same experience, really deep with yellow. And then one day, red and yellow together on the paper, and not myself in that teacher role, not bringing that, and do you see what happens when we do yellow and red? No, I just let that happen and let them experience it. And then all of the primary colors work with that. And progressing ahead, by the time we're getting into second grade, doing complementary colors and having that part. And then fast forward to physics in sixth grade, I think it was, and working with light. And we did this activity where painted a small yellow spot on paper and stared at it for a long time. And if any of you have ever done this, it's quite magic. The complementary color, the purple, comes up. And so Joseph's looking at this and just, wow, as he's watching it. And then I put the red one up, and immediately, before because I have to go into my head to think about what's the complementary color there, he knew. And so just to see how deep, he has it so deep in him, and having experienced that so many times with so many different types of content, again, just really speaks to, a big reason of why I do this approach. It takes a long time. That's the thing. And especially in our culture that often is about, we want to see that output, right? We want to see them mastering long division or whatever the content is. But in this approach, it may take a little longer, sometimes not, when I talk to other parents with children and different types of educational approaches. But for me, the bottom line is their connection and knowing it is so deep, and they don't have to, even as I myself experienced, thinking about complementary colors, having to go there to my head rather than having this deep-seated knowing that comes from following that threefold learning process. It's really fun. It, for me, is part of the work that makes this really, really fun as a parent and a teacher.